This is Jean Louise Hebert Brown, July 2020. We're having the coronavirus pandemic, and this has given me a chance to work on my family archives. This is the Kedzies, Part 1. My mother, Catherine Sayre Brown, was very fond of her grandmother, Jenny Kedzie. So when she decided to investigate her family roots, she chose her Kedzie ancestors. She would have been over the moon that Alex and Jen named their daughter Kedzie. She had herself made the Kedzie family historian. She took a training in genealogy research, and she had a coat of arms concocted for the Kedzies. It really started when she inherited a little book of Kedzie history from her beloved grandmother. You will see that she gave her copy to Michigan State University. And if you go to the web address that's on the page of the universities, you can see the book and some other things that I've donated that are regarding the Kedzie family. Or you can look on www.archive.org, and the little book is transcribed there too. I've included 4 pages on the left so you can see what it looked like. The book was the inspiration for Catherine to find out about that family. Catherine, her husband George, and their friends Nancy and George Cochrane went to Scotland to find Kedzie sites. The earliest person that she could discover was Adam Kedzie, who married Margaret Stewart, and they lived in the little town of Carnwath. They also were said to have lived in Hawick. So Catherine went to investigate those places and look for Kedzie information. She often said she was more Scottish than Dad, and of course he was born in Scotland. In the course of her investigation, she met a lot of friends and cousins and had a lot of fun. She discovered what she thought was the naming pattern of the Scots. She donated to the immigrant wall at Ellis Island in the Kedzies' name and also in the name of the Sayre family, her father's family, although neither of those families had immigrated through Ellis Island. She received lots of letters from people making genealogical requests, and she made a lot of requests of her own. In December of 1987, she tried to get information about the Kedzie farm from the historian of the Delaware County in New York. From him, she learned that James Kedzie had sold his farm in 1837. In 1977, in Lansing, Michigan, she found some living Kedzies. Catherine looked for Kedzie graves in various cemeteries in the Midwest. Catherine, her husband George, her brother George Sayre, and his wife Sue went to Petersburg and went to the place where the Kedzie farm had been located. This was in 1984. And then they went to Deerfield to the cemetery where the Kedzies are buried. And this is the map with where the land is located. Catherine wrote a 3-page genealogy in which she highlights the marriage of Elizabeth Kedzie to James Grant, who was born in Inverness in 1771. She had done a lot of investigating and gotten a lot of background, and she decided to write a book. It was historical fiction and told the story of Adam Kedzie and Margaret Stewart Kedzie coming to America. The book was never published per se, but the first part of it was published in 2 genealogical magazines, and she was thrilled. Adam, born in Scotland in 1746, and Margaret Stewart in 1756, and as you saw, they lived in Carnwaith. Adam was a baker who wanted to be a farmer. So Adam decided to emigrate with his 8 children to America in 1795 so he could have his own land. He settled in the Delaware Valley in New York, near Delhi. This was a place that many Scottish families had settled. And there, his neighbors helped him build a log cabin. One of the 8 children of Adam and Margaret was William Kedzie. He was born in Scotland in 1781. He married Margaret Telford, born in Cambridge, New York on June 29, 1792. They eventually had 8 children, and William could see that his New York farm was not going to be able to support his growing family. A close friend, Dr. Robert Clark, had moved to Michigan in 1823 and was registrar of the Monroe Land Office. He encouraged William to move. So in 1824, William went to Michigan and bought 300 acres of land on the Raisin River in southeastern Michigan. He sold his New York farm, and in the spring of 1826 took his wife and children by way of the newly opened Erie Canal to Buffalo. This is the Erie Canal. From there, they took a steamboat to La Plaisance Bay Harbor at the mouth of the Raisin River. The boat was too deep to reach the shore and discharged the family and their household goods on a pier, which was just a platform above the water without a roof or railings. They arrived May 13, 1826, too late in the day to be ferried ashore by rowboat, so William and Margaret piled up a barricade of chests and trunks around the edge to keep the children from falling off, spread blankets on the platform, and slept. The next morning, Dr. Clark came with rowboats to complete the journey. The land was not yet cleared. There was no house, so they rented a place in Monroe, while William would go 25 miles upriver to clear the land and build a home. In the meantime, Mother was doing some spirited correspondence with Ernest Telford about the Telford family and doing more investigations on them. And this is a picture of what Monroe might have looked like in the early 1800s. So Margaret put the children in school, and William worked on building the home. He had to clear the forest, and it was very dense, beautiful lumber. But it wasn't the kind of land that a farmer needs. A farmer needs clear land, and so he would clear the trees from the soil so that he could grow crops. By October, they were ready to move into their home. They packed up their goods in a wagon, which had to be dismantled and floated across the river, and the horses had to swim, and they reached their new home. They called it Kedze's Grove. Very rich farmland. William grew apples, cherries, peaches, currants, and raspberries. There were wild grapes growing on the banks of the Raisin River, that's why it got its name, but they were very sour and not able to be eaten. By 1828, they had cleared some farmland and had good crops, including corn and wheat. In July, they were harvesting the wheat when William complained of feeling ill. At the house, he fainted and had to be helped to bed. James, age 16, was sent to Monroe for Dr. Clark, who arrived by noon the next day. He practiced what medicine he knew, but William Kedzie died August 5th, 1828, at the age of 47. His widow, Margaret, was left with 5 sons and 2 daughters from ages 3 to 16 on a farm that had more Potawatomis as neighbors than settlers. Plus, there had been a wildcat banking spree later on in 1837, which was difficult for her because money couldn't be trusted and she had to do everything by bartering. There was a distillery that had been set up in Blissfield at that time, but she refused to do business with it because she was a temperance person who believed in temperance. She stayed on the farm. She lived to see all her children grown to maturity. Her 2 daughters were educated at Oberlin College. One son became a minister and another a doctor who joined the faculty of Michigan Agricultural College, now Michigan State University. These are the Potawatomi Indians. There is information now about other members of the Kedzie family. The 4 boys in the family are William, Robert, James, and George. And this is a Conestoga wagon. As the pioneers would come to go up and settle in Michigan, they would stay at the Kedzie farm. Here are the boys. And the most famous one is Robert Clark Kedzie. Stuart Kedzie went to Western Reserve College, and he knew that his brother Robert would like a college education, and he encouraged him to enroll at Oberlin. After he paid his tuition, his books, and bought a quart of whale oil, he had 37 cents left. He graduated in 1847 and began teaching at Rochester, Michigan Academy. Then after 2 years, he entered the new medical school at the University of Michigan, graduating 2 years later in the first class with 7 members. And this is the full genealogy of the Kedzies. Robert married Harriet Fairchild, a classmate at Oberlin. His first wife had died in childbirth. In December of 1861, Robert enlisted in the 12th Regiment Michigan Infantry as an assistant surgeon and served in the Civil War. He was captured a year later, and in 1863 he resigned his commission because of ill health. At that time, he was appointed professor of chemistry at Michigan Agricultural College, a position he held until his death. He was a very famous professor and very well loved. And he probably left money to the university because they built a big building and named it after him. It's still there, still beautiful. As a chemist, Dr. Kedzie began a battle with Standard Oil Company because he knew that they were diluting kerosene, and the diluted kerosene had a tendency to explode and could be fatal. He proved his point, and the legislature passed an inspection law ending kerosene dilution. He also showed how commercial fertilizer was being manipulated and convinced the legislature to pass a law to license fertilizer manufacturing in 1885. In 1891, he began a crusade for the production of sugar beets because heretofore sugar had been made from cane, which had to be grown in a warm climate. And he worked tirelessly to prove that you could make sweet product in a cold place like Michigan. He became famed as Michigan's first crusader for public health. He solved the case of people who were dying after they put up wallpaper because there was some kind of toxic poison in the wallpaper, glue or solvent. He had 3 sons, and they all graduated from Michigan Agricultural College, and they all taught chemistry. This is a picture of Kedzie Hall. So with the addition of some more information about different Kedzies and some more information about Robert Clark Kedzie, this is about the end of part 1. Our direct descendant is another William, one of the boys, and he will be the star of part 2 of the Kedzie genealogy investigations. Here's a picture of Dr. Kedzie teaching class. Some Civil War information. some information about Adam Kedzie, the preacher. And this is a picture of William.